Okay, well, meantime, on the Money Show, we have a special segment that we bring on board every Friday, and this Friday is no exception. Tomorrow is World Mental Health Day. This is one aspect of our health which most of us do tend to ignore. It's largely something that we sort of put on the back burner. Yes, we focus on our physical well-being, but we tend to ignore our mental well-being. That, though, is one of the most crucial aspects of your life. In fact, sometimes if your mental health condition isn't very well, it could be reflected in your physical well-being as well. I am going to be joined by three very special ladies. One, an entrepreneur which runs one of India's premier payment platforms. Imagine the kind of stress she must be going through every day. I'm talking about none other than Upasana Taku, the co-founder and COO of MobiKwik. Next up, did you know that India has a Mental Health Care Act which was passed in 2017? What exactly are the provisions? Does it give you certain rights for as a working woman, as an entrepreneur? Manasi Chaudhari, the founder and CEO of Pink Legal as well, joins me on the show. And finally, Prakriti Poddar, the managing trustee of Poddar Foundation, who's working hard and religiously to ensure that the stigma associated with mental health is removed. And not just that, she is trying to ensure that the importance of mental health is reached even to the tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Upasana, Manasi, as well as Prakriti, thank you so much for joining us today on the Money Show. It's a pleasure having you with us, and we are going to be, very shortly joined by all of these ladies. In fact, let me share a very interesting tidbit with you. The World Economic Forum, or the WEF, says that almost 49% of entrepreneurs do suffer from some mental health condition or the other. It could take any form, be it stress or something even more severe. And this invariably does affect your performance at work, your performance at your startup, your business, whatever the case may be. And that's the reason why it all the more assumes so much importance, your mental health, your mental well-being. And thankfully now, the awareness of keeping mental health at the forefront is spreading far and wide. Unfortunately, India, it's still something that's largely in metro cities, slowly going to tier 1 towns, but help is available, and it's thanks to people like the Poddar Foundation and many other individuals out there that we are able to get the help we need for treating our mental health conditions if we do have one. However, now you may ask, what exactly do you mean when you say a mental health condition? Does it have to be on the extreme end of the spectrum? Does it have to be on the spectrum? Or could it also be something as small as stress? When should you recognize that you may be suffering from some sort of mental health condition or the other? That's also extremely crucial to essentially understand and recognize, and that's what we will be discussing on the show. That when do you realize that, look, you need to take a bit of a back seat, you need to step back, reassess your mental health condition, and then perhaps get the help that you need. It's extremely important to do that. Okay, and now my three very special guests are all ready. Let me just once again get a very quick introduction. I did so earlier, but we have Upasana Taku, the co-founder and CEO of MobiKwik, which boasts of a 120 million user payments platform. Manasi Chaudhari, the founder and CEO of Pink Legal, and Prakriti Poddar, the managing trustee of Poddar Foundation. Ladies, it's an absolute pleasure having all of you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. Upasana, let me start off with you first, because you'll be able to give us this on-ground sense as well of how you've been feeling, especially during this lockdown. And I'm sure it's not easy handling a business and all the challenges that come along with it. It's a 120 million user platform that you've been handling. And I'm sure during this lockdown, your platform has gotten ever so busy because more and more people are using digital modes now of payments. How have these last few months been? Have you felt the stress, on your mental health, on your mental well-being? Have you just, sometimes thought of just giving it all up?
Well, I think it has been an interesting time for sure. A lot of time to, work with focus, be there for your family with focus, as well as reflect and introspect as to what did you want to accomplish in life and what are you doing with your life. So I think from that angle, I think it has been a very interesting time in the year. I know we are dealing with the pandemic and a lot of people have lost their lives, but it has been stressful, I could say that, even though I have not had any COVID related or any major health scare in my family. But yeah, the stress of dealing with a business, where for the first couple of months, sort of everything was locked up. So how, people are not able to, were not able to pay, travel is completely shut. So the stress of getting the business back on its feet and growing, this, I would say, a little bit of stress of managing your house as well as your kid and all of that. I think there were times when it was very upsetting because there's no outlet to release or entertain yourself per se. So there were quite a few weekends where I thought that life could have been better. What am I doing? How should I cope with this situation better? And I think that a lot of people felt anxiety or stress due to one reason or the other, whether professional or health scares, etc.
Well, yeah, and the idea really is that to tell the other women watching you, the other entrepreneurs watching you, that listen, you're not alone. And even the biggest of the biggest entrepreneurs out there do feel or get that sense that sometimes, what am I doing? And I just want to just sort of give it all up and probably go take a long vacation in the Himalayas or something like that. So the idea is just that, to sort of make you feel that you're not alone. Every time you feel stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're really not alone. Okay, Prakriti Poddar, I would love sort of to know more from you about the Poddar Foundation, about what it does, and also, do you believe that this whole stigma associated with mental health, and it's very upsetting to know that sometimes even in metro cities like a Mumbai or a Delhi, mental health really is not given so much importance. But do you think that this stigma now is slowly reducing, and that if women do feel that they are getting a little overwhelmed or stressed, they should go out and speak out?
So let me start with your last question first, and thank you for having me here. The stigma of mental health is still very apt. It exists. We would talk about other people going through things, but very rarely would we talk about ourselves. It's still considered a sign of weakness. So the Poddar Foundation actually has started working on that initially, and the entire initiative was called Silence Toro, break the silence around mental health disharmonies. The whole idea of first understanding what mental health is imperative, because if you don't understand something that you can't see but you only feel, then it's very difficult to explain to other people what you're going through. So Silence Toro will not work unless you're aware of the signs and symptoms of what you're going through, not just the emotional side, but also the scientific side of what's happening in your body, mind, and spirit connect. In terms of the Poddar Foundation, especially during this lockdown, we started an initiative with the Rotary Club as well called the Wellbeing Volunteers United. And I must say, like, even what Upasana said here, people pivot. She pivoted. She made sure that her business was, she was capable of handling the business and running the business given the circumstances. So you can understand that people have resilience. The pivoting takes place. And what I've seen as well with when I started the Wellbeing Volunteers United, and it was March 16th that I started it, because I knew that there's a lockdown coming and this is really going to be something that is going to continue. 700 people signed up, 700 in a week, to volunteer, to be able to provide sort of distress counseling to people over a free helpline. They're still with us. Of course, people don't call in as much because we're not promoting it as much as we used to. But apart from that, people don't call in. Coming back to why I feel the stigma is still high, because you're stuck with your family. You're in your house with your family members. A lot of the stress is created within the environment that you're in. To take that time within that environment to make that call, how many people really have space to be able to really talk about what they're going through. Unless the phones were active 24/7 and maybe active in the night where somebody could sneak into a quiet place and have a conversation, it's very unlikely that they would have a conversation about their mental state of mind in front of the family members. It's always, hush, bachcho ke samne mat bolna, inke samne mat bolna. There's so much stigma around it. And we're taught from childhood, really, to not own our feelings. We're taught I'll give you examples. When you eat your food and your parents are sitting there, your mother will often tell you that, you haven't eaten enough, eat a little bit more. Right in the beginning, I know Upasana as a kid, I'm sure she does this as well. I have 3 kids, so I definitely do this. No, eat more, that's not enough food, right? But we start right there telling the child that, the child is not aware of his mind and his body. And we break that connect right there by continuing to feed them this information that what we know about them is more important than what they know about themselves. And this continues as a transaction in our relationship with our family members, where we believe that what they're going through is not valid enough. Like if a child comes to you and says, I'm not comfortable with that uncle, or I'm not comfortable with the way in which he makes me sit on your lap, the immediate thing is, what are you talking about? He's your uncle, and what's wrong with you? You immediately shut off. You shut off your own emotions as well. So not talking about these things are not considered as mental health programs, but they are programming. If you understand what the programming means, it's programming that makes you shut off from your own emotions and owning your own self and being able to communicate that. So there are huge challenges in mental health. Mental health is because when I run a foundation, people will always pay for impact. So there will be companies that look at the impact of what you have. But how do you study an impact where you're preventing mental health illnesses from coming? How do you study that impact? I mean, it's only about awareness then, right? Having awareness of what mental health issues are and then working towards overcoming those. So building your resilience and support. It's like going to the gym, building your muscles and not having a fight, So you're not going to the gym, building a muscle to get into a war or combat anymore, right? In the same way, Poddar Foundation works on building that resilience, that strength, making sure that you can understand the signs and symptoms of mental health challenges, disorders, mental health, feelings of apathy. You can understand this, and you can start working on making sure that you set up a structure of resilience, which you can have and leverage when things go bad.
Prakriti, let me just come in there, and I definitely want to get in your view on how we can tackle all those aspects. We'll just have to slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We're continuing our conversation with Upasana, Prakriti, as well as Manasi. Okay, welcome back. We are on the Money Show discussing a topic that we don't discuss that often, and that's mental health. Now, many of you may not be knowing, but there's actually a Mental Health Act that was passed in 2017. Manasi, over to you then. What exactly are the provisions that really stand out in this Mental Health Act? If you could just sort of summarize it in simple words for our viewers.
Thank you so much for having me. And as you said correctly, many people are not aware that we actually have a Mental Health Act in India. And it was passed in 2017. So it's a fairly recent legislation, you could say that. We had one earlier than that, but this is the latest act. And a few really important points over here is number one, is it decriminalizes suicide. So as you know, earlier attempt to suicide was a criminal act. And if a person is not successful in their attempt, and then, they can be put in jail. So that is a very important step, I feel, towards mental health by decriminalizing the attempt to suicide. So sort of destigmatizes the entire, mental health. Then secondly, it actually gives like a pretty broad and inclusive definition of mental illness. So it says that, mental illness is any sort of like disorder or any sort of substantial disorder relating to mood, behavior, thinking, perception, alcohol or drug abuse. But it carves out the difference that any sort of mental retardation, which is like a stunted mental growth, will not be considered a mental illness. But anything other than that is broadly covered under this. So which actually gives a very, very inclusive definition where different sorts of like mental illnesses can come under this umbrella. And third, it gives quite a few substantial rights to a person who is considered to be, suffering from mental illness. So firstly, this person is considered to have capacity to decide their, to take decisions in their life, to decide their treatment, to appoint a nominated person in case they want somebody else to take, certain decisions on their behalf. So they are given the agency instead of taking the agency away from them. And they have made certain, procedures illegal, like forced sterilization, or certain like surgical procedures which could be forcefully performed on people earlier. So these have been made illegal. And apart from that, then you have like, a few positive rights on the government, like right to act. So the government has to ensure that they make the right to access mental health care very, very, easily available to people without any sort of discrimination based on external factors like, your religion, gender, caste, your political views, or any sort of like external factor should not come into play when you are trying to access mental health. I mean, any sort of like mental health care. So these are a few of the salient features of this act. And, from there, I think if you want to take it forward from there, you could probably tell me what exactly you would like to know.
And I will, Manasi. Upasana, let me go to you. Do you think that entrepreneurs in particular have all the more this tendency to sort of ignore the qualitative aspects of mental health?
Well, I think that the stress levels are pretty high for entrepreneurs or promoters. And as we are all aware of, last year we had this very public, suicide by the founder of Cafe Coffee Day. And just earlier, last week, in the last 10 days, I'm not going to name any person, but the founder of a early stage SaaS startup also committed suicide. So I think that I can tell you by being a founder myself for the last 10 or 11 years that the level of responsibility and the level of stress at different times is pretty high. You're responsible for your company, you're responsible for employment to, to 50, 100 or thousands of employees that you might have. And, there is always stress from deal making related to equity or debt transactions. Some might go through, some might get stuck, and they result in huge ramifications on the company. I can tell you that anyone who has tried to build a company of scale for more than 5 years probably has dealt with at least 2 instances where they almost think that the company will die, and then somehow things worked out and they're back on the revival track. So I do believe that the stress levels are pretty high in certain, and it's not just for entrepreneurs leading startups or large companies. I think it is also the same for several other high pressure jobs, and I do believe that the awareness level, even in very highly educated people, is pretty poor on the mental health aspect. It is something that people don't talk about enough. It is something that people don't take active steps around. And I don't know why that is, whether it is social stigma or otherwise, but I think that being self-aware is important, and being aware of the fact that if something is taking a toll on you, then you have to find a way of releasing it. Keeping it with yourself doesn't help. And whether it is talking to your friends or your spouse or family members, whether it is disconnecting yourself from all the devices which will keep giving you more information that might add to your a particular situation of stress, you need to disconnect yourself, maybe entertain yourself, do some hobby, do some running, cycling. Sometimes people need to take a break. I think talking about it with your near and dear ones and doing something actively to reduce your stress level is important, because you have to know what is your purpose in life. My purpose in life is to lead a healthy and happy and successful life. And Therefore, not everything can be about your company. And, it doesn't help me if I create a huge conglomerate and I create a huge legacy for my family and my children, but if I die because of a heart attack at the age of 35 or 40. So I think ultimately we're all responsible for our well-being, and we have to take the right steps. I can tell you from my personal experience that I am 40 years of age, and so far in the last 10 years, I have gone and seen a doctor, and I have taken a medication for a 2 month or a 3 month period where I was feeling, very stressed out. And the stress could be due to professional reasons, or it could be due to personal reasons. In my case, it was, the passing away of someone in my family, which was difficult for me to deal with, while at the same time dealing with the stress of being a mother, being an entrepreneur, a wife, all of that. And I think that this is something that people should realize, that they have to take steps to protect themselves and to help themselves.
True. I'm so glad, Upasana, that you've shared that experience, because I hope, the idea is that more people come out with that. But, you identified that point about, recognizing when it's time to take, take a step back and sort of check out on your mental health. And, Prakriti, you mentioned that bit on something as small as mothers saying that, no, you've not eaten enough, eat enough. And I think that's a time immemorial dilemma faced by all mothers and their kids. Mothers always feel that kids do not eat enough. But it's amazing that you think that something like that as well is something that could make an individual realize that, okay, maybe the other person knows more about me than them. So that's the tendency. We have to sort of normalize everything, that, okay, I'm feeling this stress, but it's fine, it's just something very small. I'll probably sleep it off. So according to you, what are those 3-4 points, or those 3-4 instances, just, so that it can be simple for our viewers, where they should realize that, okay, this is a problem sign. I should step back and sort of reassess my mental health condition. What should be those telltale signs according to you?
The fantastic truth is that there is an answer to that, because you have very clear telltale signs. And it's extremely important to identify what those telltale signs are and understand whether it's a mental health concern that you need to go and seek help for, or is it something that's just a passing mood. And so some of those things would be, if you have a change in your sleep or your sleep pattern, extremely important. If you're unable to sleep, if you wake up every night in a sweat, if you have physiological changes that take place in your sleep cycle and in your body over a long period of time, this is a telltale sign of something that's going on that you need to look at. Mood changes. So if you've had like dramatic mood swings, or you feel depressed, or there's dysphoria, which is a total mood of not being excited about anything, there's this blah feeling. If you feel dysphoric and it's over a period of time, these are some things that you should look at and again seek help. If you're working and you find that there's a drop in functioning, you're not motivated, you're not able to resonate with things you were able to resonate with, go and talk to somebody. Again, somebody, when I say somebody, I mean a professional. I do not mean a friend. When you have problematic thinking, if there's kind of like a fog, when you'll always hear people say, oh, I think I was going through some kind of mental health stress because there was a fog. I couldn't really tell what was going on. And that's a sign that you need to seek help. So, these things are generally things that are important. But if you as a person see somebody else pulling away, being disconnected from society, or if you feel like that, you feel like disconnecting, understand that I'm not talking about disconnect to do meditation. I'm talking about feeling disconnected, avoiding interacting with other people, having some kind of illogical thinking where A plus B equals C, which is completely, which might be normal to you now seems like A plus B equals Z. You can seek help at that point. It's a varied kinds of thinking. This kind of unusual behavior, shifts in behavior patterns is something you need to look at, because these things identify a deeper they're symptoms really of something that's going on with your mental state of mind and your being. So it's important that we actually look at what this is. If there's a change in your memory patterns as well, if you're not able to retain information, if your capability is if your sad mood continues for more than a week into a month, you need to seek help. And help is not scary. I mean, psychiatrists are not scary. Psychologists are not scary. They're actually trained in empathy. So it's important that you seek help at that point, because no amount of talking to your friends and family is actually going to be able to get you to the right medication and the right therapy that you need. I think it's important for you to be aware that there is a doctor for this, and you can seek help and go to a doctor. And I find it very important that people understand that, because there's no need. I mean, there's a psychiatrist who is an advisor in my company, and he was narrating this story that a person was really proud of his accomplishments, and he came there to him and said, Doc, I've been dealing with this stress for so long. It's taken me like 6 months to a year, and I finally overcome it. And it was a struggle, but I've managed to come on this side. And the doctor's answer was, why did you have to take 6 months? You could have just come to us. We would have helped you in like a week. You would have been feeling better, because you don't need to fight this alone. There is no power in feeling that I can fight this alone. Yes, you can build your resilience and skills, and that's what's preventive and protective mental health. But when it becomes curative, seek help. You're not going to say, oh, I was fighting my lung disease on my own, and I did not go to the doctor because I thought it better that I deal with it. It doesn't make sense. Mental health and physical health need to be equated at the same level. And yes, both features of physical health and mental health have protective and curative, protective mental health and physical health and behavioral symptoms, whether it comes with nutrition, physical fitness, exercise, and your mindset. All these things prevent you from getting into deeper illnesses. And in the same way, at that point, you don't need a doctor, and you develop your internal and external strength to be able to overcome those things. But when you have something that has attacked you, whether it be a physical health or mental health or an emotional crisis, please seek help, because there are doctors trained to help you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think it's always important to keep communication lines open. And, the aim as well of this entire conversation was to ensure that people talk about mental health. Don't sort of brush it under the carpet. You open out and you talk about it. Talk to your friends, talk to, someone trusted, your parents. And of course, there are all sorts of professional help as well available there. But with that, we're completely out of time. Upasana, Prakriti, as well as Manasi, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now, and sharing your thoughts just on this eve of World Mental Health Day. And we really hope that it sort of starts a discussion as well for all our viewers on mental health, makes them as well essentially realize that maybe I should step back and just sort of reassess my mental health condition. So thanks so much to all three of you.